What's up, guys? I'm showing you how to use colored pencils. This drawing I'm gonna do is going to be a black and gray and some white colored pencil drawing. Here is the reference picture that I'm gonna be using. I put together four reference photos, and then I photoshopped it in Procreate. So before we start with colored pencil, you should know how to blend properly. There's a couple examples of blending. The first one's probably not that good, but you should have a smooth blend and just kind of get used to how your colored pencils feel. I was doing a couple brush strokes and stuff, and try to do different lengths for your blending, just so you can get a feel for how far you need to stop with a color, or things like that. So I already drew out the drawing with pencil, and these are the pencils I'm going to be using. So we have white, we have 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%, 70%, 90%, and 100% black. In Prismacolor, they have the percentages conveniently placed on the color. So in Prismacolor, they have cool tones and warm tones. You should never mix the two, because if you put like a 50% warm tone with the rest is cool tones, it's gonna look really weird. And you can kind of see like the difference between the warm and the cool tones, and they all have the same starting point, which is white, and the same ending point, which is black. And that's gonna be like the the percentages that I was naming out earlier. I just wanted to go over some simple blending techniques. So see how I'm lightly going with my colored pencil? So in order to build tones, you need to start off super light, like barely there, barely any pressure. And then as you're building up more, you're gonna keep building up a little bit pressure each time. You can see how the outside edges are lighter than the inside. The inside is very saturated. Yeah, it just takes about like 10 passes to make like the full saturation level that's needed. If you're going to be using colored pencil a lot, I recommend getting a nice pencil sharpener, because I was hand sharpening them with a knife and it took forever. And then I had a cheap pencil sharpener and it broke after like a couple weeks. But this one's really nice. I haven't had any problems with it. I'll put a link in the description for where I got this one and all my other materials too. But this one's nice because it just shoots it back out whenever it's done, and then it's just completely sharp. And then you can also like change the level of sharpness, like super sharp to very dull. But I just keep it in the middle. Sometimes I'll put it at more dull for colored pencils, because if you go right onto the page, it will probably break because of how sharp it is. So now I wanted to show how I blend two colors. You want to have a seamless transition. So I'm going to start off super lightly with the lighter tone, and then I'm going to go back super lightly, just overlapping it a little bit with the darker tone. And I like to do the lights first. You can do the darks first if you want to, but I just prefer doing the lights first. Yeah, so I'm just going back with the lighter color, and I'm overlapping with every pass. So remember when I was showing you the saturation, like how to get a lot of saturation, you have to build up the colors. That's the same thing for this. You just have to overlap them. And then like you always have to go back with the other color, and it's like a layer sandwich pretty much, dark light, and that way you can achieve super dark and super lights while it being blended perfectly within the middle. I'm adding a little bit more pressure here just because it's starting to get waxy. And the more layers you add, the more waxy it gets, and then it's harder for you to add more layers. If you ever get in a situation where you can't add anymore because it's so waxy, I would just take a super hard eraser and like go ham at it and then try to add another color. That's like worst case scenario, but you gotta do what you gotta do, you know. So yeah, now we have it perfectly blended just by going back and forth with very thin layers. And here I'm showing you what would happen if you started off super dark. So I'm just putting the colors as dark as I can, and you can see like how it meets in the middle and it's not blended at all, and it's just like a hard line that you can see. So once you go super dark, there's not really any going back. And even if you erase it, you can still see like the remnants of your mistakes. So it's better to start off super light and build it up. It takes a lot of patience, but it is worth it for the end product. So I have my kneaded rubber eraser. The kneaded eraser is good for colored pencil drawings because it reduces the amount of eraser shavings there, and then you don't end up smearing your pencil lines everywhere. So I just opened this kneaded eraser, so it's kind of hard. I'm just kneading it out and kind of softening it up a little bit. I'm just breaking it in half because these can get pretty dirty. I don't particularly like them that much, but I think it's a good tool to know how to use, so I'm gonna use it. So what I'm doing here is just erasing the super hard pencil lines. I'm erasing them because they will show up underneath your colored pencil drawing, and you do not want your pencil lines to show up underneath. I just think it ends up looking muddy because from the pencil it does show up gray, so it's like putting gray where it doesn't need to be. But yeah, I'm just lightly removing a lot of the pencil lines, and I'm just kind of tapping it. I can still see it. It might be hard for you guys to see the pencil lines that I'm erasing, but it's okay for them to be very light. As long as you can still see them, that's all that matters. Here's a problem you're going to run into with the kneaded eraser. Like, this is why I don't like them that much, because if you use it in one spot, it kind of leaves that dark residue, and it's hard to get off. But yeah, if you're like constantly rotating it, it shouldn't be an issue. But I don't really use them, so I don't really know the exact manners to use with a kneaded eraser. But yeah, so you can see I went back with my real eraser on my pencil. So I had to so I had to get off some of those eraser shavings. So what I like to do before I start is kind of match, because I'm doing it in grayscale, I like to match the tones of the skin with the color first. So the darkest part is obviously going to be black, and then probably the the outer oval will be like 70% dark. And then these tones are pretty similar on the face and the background, so you kind of got to be careful. I think I'll do a little bit lighter tone on the face and then keep the background more dark. And the ones I'm using is the cool tones, but always leave room for the highlights. And yeah, I'm just matching up the colors and seeing what matches where. So I'm going in with a super light tone. I want to say this is 10% or 20%, but I'm just going where it needs to be super light, and I'm barely putting any pressure. This is just for me to map out the colors on the face, and then I'm gonna build it up more as I progress through this drawing. I'm just lightly still going in with that. It's either 10 or 20%. And then I went back with the eraser to erase some of those harder pencil lines. Now I'm going in with a little bit of a darker tone, just kind of mapping out the darker spots on the face. I'm outlining the hair with a dark color just so I don't go into that space with a lighter color and then mess it up. I'm outlining the chainmail pearl hat. I don't know what it's called, but I thought it looked pretty cool. At the end of this drawing you'll see, but I was being very lazy with the chain detail. I did not feel like doing all those little loops, so it looks kind of messy, but the face looks good. I'm just filling in lightly with this is either 90% or total black that I'm using. And you always want to go the way the hair goes. Like, you don't want to put a horizontal line where it's a vertical line, because that's always going to show up in your later layers. Just outlining the face. And it's okay for me to outline with a very dark color because the dark colors are there. But if it was like light on light and I was outlining with black, that'd be bad. So there is a highlight on the edge of her face. Like the rest, like say her cheek is like 50% dark. Well, I'm gonna add 20% light on the edge of her cheek just to have that separation. And I'd say that's true for almost any portrait. I just like to have a highlight spot, but that's just me. So yeah, I'm just lightly going back over the same areas. It's probably my second or third pass over this area. So now I'm using 70%, outlining the nostril. And you want to be really careful when you do this, because if you get the nose wrong, or if you get the nostril point wrong, it's gonna mess up the whole face. But since I already measured out all these proportions, it should be pretty accurate. So I'm just outlining the nose. And the nose does have that dark line there, or like a darker shadow. I'm just building up more shadow here, very lightly. I'm outlining the lips. The lip should always be a lot darker than the rest of the face, just to show that separation. These, I think they're like pearls that are glued on her face. I'm kind of ignoring them right now because if I trace them with a circle, it might make that part darker because that's an extra layer. So I'm just kind of going over them, what the colors are, and then later I'm gonna go back with a white gel pen that's gonna go on top of the colored pencil because sometimes you need the extra highlights, and the white is like it's already too waxy for the white to go onto that area, so you need the extra gel pen. I'm marking the highlight spots in the eye. I always do this first when I do an eye because you could unknowingly just go right over it and then it wouldn't look right. And then I mark to the pupil. The eye is pretty dark and you can't really see the pupil differentiated from the rest of the eye, but it should still be a little bit darker. I'm outlining the eye because she has the eyeliner, so it's okay for me to outline it, but if the eyeliner wasn't there, I would not be outlining it in black. And I'm just adding the pearls again. I'm kind of marking the teeth out. I'm measuring the center line of her face because that's where the middle tooth will go, and then I'm measuring where the second tooth ends. You should always be measuring the facial features in agreement to the other facial features that are on the face. So like if the nostril ends here and I go down and this part's here, that's an easy way to find out if your drawing is off. I'm just filling in the darkest parts of the mouth and then going with a lighter color to try to blend that out. I'm speeding things up, just lightly building the rest of that face up. This is layers and layers and layers. You gotta be patient. Filling in the hair. It's important to have that shadow on her skin to differentiate the hands from her chest. And I'm outlining the circle with the ornaments. For the circle, I just put as much pressure as I could because that's just one single color. There's no blending, and there was no blending until the top of her head, and I did do the method I showed you guys. But yeah, I'm just kind of filling in that ornament stuff, trying to make it look chrome. And the key to chrome is just super darks next to super lights. And then the pearls, those, you have to have the exact same reflection. But yeah, you can see here I got a little bit lazy with the chains. I'm just kind of putting in random shapes. They're not really symmetrical or equal in any way. But yeah, here I am going with the jelly pen, the white jelly pen, put in the highlights on her lips. I also did it on her eyes and some of the pearls that she had on her eyes. And the main pearl on her forehead. Some of the pearls on her necklace. And then I put some on her nails as well. I'm just going back to add the pearl balls that were on her eyes that I did not leave room for when I was shading her face. And because those are so white, I'm going to go back with some darker colored pencils to kind of give it a shadow. So here's the finished product. I hope that helped you guys with some blending tips, just to see my process too. The key is just layers and layers and layers. You really got to be patient. But yeah, guys, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already.